Hey guys, welcome back to Mastering Gaming Studios. I'm Craig.
And I'm Sam.
And today we're reviewing Chapter Approved 2022, a very interesting book. We knew it was coming, we were glad it was coming. Good changes in here, but a lot of big question marks and red flags that we say are raised from here. And we'll talk about all of that coming up in this video. So before we dive in, please consider liking and subscribing to stay up to date on all of our videos here at Mastering Gaming Studios. And if you want to support the growth of our channel, do consider becoming a member. We do get ad revenue, but really it's the channel members that drive the growth of this more than anything else. So thank you, channel members. We couldn't do this without you guys. Now, with all that out of the way, let's dive into today's video.
So, we will be reviewing today the point changes. This is probably one of the biggest things that's been talked about in addition to the updated missions and secondaries. We'll be going over those, the primary changes, the secondary changes, and then a couple other key changes that have been made to the competitive 40K rule set. And then once all that is said and done, we are going to be giving our thoughts, what we think about these changes for better or for worse.
All right, yeah, so we'll start in changes. This is what you paid essentially 20 bucks for, is this book right here to tell you all of the wonderful changes. We're gonna do all of them because we don't care about all of them. Some armies didn't even get them.
Yeah.
Necrons, most of your codex got a point drop. The Silent King, 30 points, he's now, I would say, borderline auto take in competitive matchups because he's really cheap for what he can do. Flayed one, 3-point drop, fun. Most of the Destroyer Cult stuff all went down 5 points. The Doomstalker went down 10 points, great. Doomscythe, Nightscythe, Monolith, all the big vehicles really dropped 10, 20, 30, 40, and 50 points. So yeah. I mean, it's good. It's definitely good for the Necrons. Maybe it'll take them a step up even higher. There are still two key glaring issues with the Necrons. Now, Connor's not here. He's our Necron player. But from what I know with them, their characters are still very expensive and they're very restricted on their characters. And their Necron warriors and their immortals are, I think, still too pricey. I know GW wants to be very careful with warriors, that if you bring them down too much, they're going to be just absolutely abused. But I would almost argue a 1-point drop on each of them would be game-changing for the Necrons. Because right now, even to just play a 1,000-point army, if you take a block of warriors, that's like a third of your army. Sure. So maybe a point drop on them could just help out a little bit. But that's the Necrons out of the way.
Yeah.
Go for it.
Yeah, it's, Connor's not here. He knows Necrons far better than I do. But from an outsider's perspective looking in, it is very interesting to see everything in their army had to be given core, and now like everything in their army is getting massive across the board point drops. It's kind of interesting to see with the two codexes that came out at launch being Space Marines and Necrons, Games Workshop backpedaling so hard to try to make the Necrons better, whereas Space Marines they're doing fine. They don't need that level of attention. It's just interesting to see. I don't know what that means. A smarter man maybe, but just look outside looking in.
Hopefully the writers of the Necron Codex are not doing the Tyranid Codex is all I can say. Again, Connor's not here, but we'll go over his Grey Knight point changes as well because we know we have some Grey Knight fans here. All great changes. Dread Knights went up 10 points apiece. They also we'll talk about it later, but they now limit you to 4 Dread Knights per army. So I think that's perfectly fair, balanced. That is both flavors of Grandmaster and regular ones. The Interceptors went up 2 points, great. They're being abused. 2 points is very worth it on them. Terminators and Paladins went down 2 points. Maybe you'll see them, maybe you won't. I still think Strike Marines are a little bit too cheap considering they are the same price as an Intercessor with same attacks, but they have a power weapon and they have a Storm Bolter and Psychic powers for the same point cost.
Yeah.
But that's it. Not much else to say with the Grey Knights there.
It's always good to see Terminators of all stripes and flavors going down in points. Terminators are cool. I want to see them more.
I want to see more of them.
I should take them more.
Yes.
I have them.
And now we'll go to the ones most of you guys are here for. The Tyranid point changes, most of them all very good. The negative ones we expected. So Hiveguard, 5-point increase on the model itself. Unfortunate, that means our shot cannons went up 5 points, to the point where they're probably not worth it at all. I wish they just increased the Impaler cannon cost, because that was the real problem with them, at least if you're going to address it by a point change, it was. The Daimakaran went up 25 points. He is now sitting at 280. That seems like a bit much, considering they did not touch the side hero duel, and he's sitting at 235, and I would argue a side hero duel is already better than the Daimakaran, especially in a Crusher Stampede list.
Right. Now it's cheaper and better.
Now it's way cheaper and better. Unfortunately, I'm going to have 2 Daimakarans soon. We're still going to use them,
They're
but
cool models.
they're really cool models. But in terms of a tournament list,
Yeah.
I don't see Daimas coming around at maybe one, but a double Daima is probably not going to be as common.
And now, what I'm curious about your perspective, do you think, we're going to see less Hiveguard in lists with the price increase? Or do you think changes will be made in other parts of the list to compensate?
I think you're going to see a lot more of just one block of 6. I don't think you're going to see too many 18 or too many 12 Hiveguard per army. I think it's going to be very much one block of 6, especially because a lot of people are playing Crusher Stampede, and one block of 6 is all you need and all you can really take in Crusher Stampede. So I'd say that maybe some people who just love their Hiveguard would go for 12, but if you're taking 18, that's 90 points extra your list is, so it's going to be hard to scrape out 90 points from something else in the army.
Sure. Something's got to give somewhere.
Exactly. Now, a whole bunch of awesome changes. Tyrannofexes, Harusfexes, and Exocrines, 3 of our big Toughness 8 bugs, all went down 15 points. All of them were great. I already thought the Exocrine and Tyrannofex were competitive at their point values. Now, I wouldn't say they were top tier, but they were competitive. Now at the point changes, they are looking very good. The Harusfex is the only one that I'm really happy he went down 50 points, because now I think he's at least 1 in a Crusher Stampede is very good, because just how versatile they are with their damage output. And then the last one, I preface this as I'm not sure if this is true. I mean, it is. According to the book, this is true. It just seems really odd that Ravners, all of their weapons are now free. So they're 20 points, but they're 20 points if you take Rending Claws, or a Death Spitter, or Devours, or Spine Fist. That could be good. I mean, I still think you're going to see Ravners slowly popping up to be your action monkeys now that Lictors are out of the game pretty much. Ravners could be useful. Taking squads with Death Spitters, now it could be viable. It's not a 26 points a model of a point sink. On a 9-man block, you're saving yourself, what is that, 9 times 6, 54 points, which is a huge savings.
Right.
We'll see.
Yeah.
But all in all, good changes. Totally accept the Hiveguard changes. I think the Daima is a bit much. 15 I would have been okay with, 25 is a bit. And all of the big bug changes, awesome.
Yeah, it's nice. It's nice to see that, especially with the new preponderance for Crusher Stampede,
Yeah.
the big monsters getting a point drop. Now, I'm curious, is there anything else you thought deserved a point drop that you would have liked to see?
Anything else deserved? I don't think much deserved a point drop. I would have liked the Ravners to go down 2 points. I know their weapons are free, so I can't complain, but a 20-point stock Ravner I still think is just a little bit much. Other than that, I don't think there's anything that I was like, please get a point drop, please get a point drop. It was, I'm trying to think if there's anything. I think all of it is fairly reasonably balanced.
Sure. GW did good on that section.
Carnifexes, there, sorry guys.
Oh.
Carnifexes, those could have used a 10-point drop at least. But yeah, other than that, yeah, I'd say it's pretty balanced. So now we've covered this book, $20, done.
Yep.
Don't need it ever again. So we're done with that book. We'll talk about more of that later. Now we'll go into the true reason you got this book.
The other $20 you spent.
The other 20, and that is the mission pack if you're playing tournaments. These are the new updated missions. We have played, I will try to put Is it above Sam's head? My head? I can never remember. Link a battle report. We did play Connor and I played a battle report with one of these new missions, and we really liked it. Sam and I will be filming a battle report, so that'll be coming out maybe a week from now with one of these new missions. So my initial thoughts, Sam doesn't have any yet. I really like them, at least for the primary standards. I think they help balance the disparity between someone scoring max primary and someone scoring minimum primary at least. It helps out that way. But we'll talk about those changes. So previously, the scoring system for primaries was 5, 10, 15 if you have hold 1, hold 2, hold more, or 2, 3 more, whatever your mission is. Now it's changed up to be a 4, 8, 12, and there is no longer a mission secondary, but it is a mission bonus to the primary. And these consist of, killing more units or killing a certain amount of units or holding specific objectives, things like that. And it gives you just another 3 points. So you can still get 15 every turn, just different ways to do it.
Yeah, I think that's super cool because in my experience, I never really saw anybody ever take mission secondaries. No. And this really helps make each mission different because, really in practice, the mission just determined where the objectives are and where the deployment zones are. And, the flavor of the mission and the name of the mission really means nothing. Now you're actually incentivized to play the mission.
Play the mission.
Yeah, so it's going to help very, very play up a lot, I think.
I think it will too. There was some worry earlier that some of these that's like, kill more gives you 3 bonus points, that was going to, reward shooting armies sitting back and shooting. But I don't think an extra 3 points a turn is enough to warrant that. We'll have to see how time comes out, but you said it good. It forces you to play the missions. They got rid of the useless mission secondaries, which meant nothing to anyone except for priority target, which was an auto 15 almost every time. So yeah, I'm happy, and you brought up a good point with that.
Yeah.
So now we have secondary changes. We're going to go through all of these because a lot of them did change and just enough to be annoying. So I'll go through the first one. And now for engaging all fronts, Tyranid players, this is where we are a little sad. You now have to have at least 3 models in each quarter in order to count as having, units in the quarter. They can be different units, but gone are the days of dropping a single lictor in the corner and scoring engaged in all fronts.
Yeah.
I get it. It was a little bit of a cheesy way, but it's what the lictors did. So
right.
now we can use Rippers if we really want, or Raveners or things like that. Other armies have ways of doing it. It's just, 3 models, I get it. They're making it, you play it a little bit more than what it is.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, a single model sitting in the corner is not engaging on any front. It's one bug in a corner.
Exactly. The next one, I can go over this one, and you can do the others. No prisoners. That was the one where you get bonus points for killing just number of models or wounds on models. It was very hard to get to the top levels, the 13, 14, 15 points. So it's the same rules, except now if you kill 50 to 99 wounds, you get an extra point just for doing that. And if you kill 100 plus wounds, you get another point just for doing that. So no longer do you have to kill 150 wounds in order to max it out. You only need to do 130 to max it out. Even then, if you do 100 wounds, it's 12 points. So it makes it, I would say, more attractive to a lot of armies going up against hordes. So I like the change.
Yep. Bring It Down is still getting you victory points for killing vehicles and monsters. It is 1 victory point for killing a vehicle or monster with 9 wounds or less. 10 to 14 wounds gets you 2 victory points, and 15 wounds gets you 3 victory points. And, as we point out in the slide, 10 to 14 wounds, 2 victory points hurts for pretty much all transports in the game. Because, a Rhino is not particularly hard to kill, and now it's giving up 2 victory points.
Yeah, twice. I mean, you'd go against the armies, especially Gene Circle now, where you could spam, 5 rhinos or something. It's just not that people are doing it, but still 5 transports, or I guess the sisters, they have their rhinos. Those you see a lot of. It's just, it wasn't worth wasting the firepower to get 1 point. Now it's a bit more. And the other one, 15 plus wounds, now granting 3 points instead of just still 2. Mortarion, Magnus, Tyranids, all of our Daimas, Scythe, and Barbed Hero Duels are all going to be feeling that pain. It's going to reward our opponents when they go up against Crusher Stampede, because it's going to make it that much likely they're going to max out, bring it down against us if they're killing our monsters.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then Psychic Interrogation no longer requires line of sight.
I love that.
That's a good change.
I love that. Very simple. It's a lot I mean, not that it was hard to do, but your opponent could really outmaneuver you and just hide your characters if you need to. Now, if you're just within 24 inches, you do it, you get victory points. Easy change. We got more changes. Yeah, so deploy teleport homers was a pretty bad secondary. Now it is completed at the end of your turn if you do it with the troop choice. This is the one where you have to do an action in your opponent's deployment zone. And then it had to be completed at the end of the next turn. So the odds of you keeping a unit back there alive for a whole turn was not likely.
And if it was to that point, then, you know, things are already probably going pretty bad for your opponent.
Yeah.
If you can keep a unit safe in their deployment zone for a whole turn.
I really tried to see if this one is now worth it, but it doesn't get you, it gets you 2 points if you do it once a turn, or if you do it twice. No, 4 points if you're wholly within your deployment zone, 2 points if it's within their table half. I don't know.
There are better options.
There are better options. Retrieve Octarius data is gone. It is now retrieve Nachmund data, which, yeah, fine, I get it.
Whatever data you need from Vigilus, I guess.
Yeah, so this one is one of them that hurts a lot. Our book is already falling apart, it looks like.
Awesome.
Good quality, GW.
Nice. Yeah, sad Tears of the Tyranids.
So it's the same general idea where you have to do it one in each action. You get 0 for once, once. If you do it twice, 4 points, 3, 8 times, 12 points for doing it all 4 quarters. But there's a lot more book work to actually scoring it. So now you have to do it. If you do the action, you have to roll a die, and you have to roll equal to or less than the number of models in the unit doing the action. And you could subtract 1 if they're troop choice. So if you have a 5-man squad of Marines, they're gonna do it every time. If you have a 10-man squad of Gaunts or whatever, done. But if you have a single lictor,
you gotta roll a 1.
A 1 in 6 chance of doing the action, and you don't really want to bank on. And it still says, this was something one of our members wanted me to confirm for them, so I'm gonna confirm it. It still is an infantry unit, so our Rippers can still not do this action, which means we are left to doing this with Gaunts, Warriors, and Raveners are probably our best bet for getting this one done.
So?
Probably won't be seeing it a whole lot.
And Raveners just become that much more important because now you said they're the primary engage on all front vector.
Yeah, because they can deep strike. They're still 3 40mm bases, so they take up the same amount of space as Rippers, but they can do actions, and they are 40% more expensive than a group of Rippers. So, you might see them now, and I'm probably, actually you'll see in the battle report, I do play around with bringing some Raveners to complete missions like this, but that's that one. The last one is Investigate Signals. You have to do the action within 6 inches of the center, and it can be completed at the end of the turn if there are no enemies within 6 inches. So previously you couldn't start the action if there was enemies within 6 inches, so your opponent could just put one model there and prevent you from doing it. Now, as long as you clear the enemy models by the end of the turn, you can still complete the action. So you might go for that one. It'll be interesting because they have to be wholly within, so if you have like a big unit, you have to fit that whole big unit completely within the center, and it's got to be it doesn't have to be a troop choice.
Yeah,
it can be just any infantry with 3 or more models.
Okay, I guess if you can get a big block and shove them all within 6 inches of the center, you can more or less prevent your enemy from getting within 6 inches of the center as well.
You could do that too. That might pair with, I'm thinking for Tyranids, that might pair well with the Psychic one, which is Warp Ritual, which is doing a psychic action when you're within 6 inches of the center. It could pair pretty well, just getting 2 units, controlling the center of the board, doing all your secondaries, and going from there, but...
That's a lot of victory points in one 6-inch bubble.
It is. It's a lot of victory points right there.
So
the only other thing we haven't mentioned on secondaries, and I don't have a slide for them, but they did include chapter or army specific secondaries in here. So every army now has at least one codex specific secondary. I have not read all of them. I do not plan to read all of them right now. The Tyranids one is okay. Maybe we'll use them in the next battle report, but just something to look at. There are individual ones. You've probably seen them or can find them. They're in a white dwarf, and they're also in this book. So I was worried at first they weren't going to put them in this book and you had to buy the white dwarf. And I almost bought the white dwarf today, and they're like, nah, they wouldn't do that. And they didn't, thankfully.
Sometimes they're nice.
Sometimes they're nice. So I'm not going to go over all of them, but yeah, so Imperial Guard got one, Astra Militarum, Tyranids got one, Chaos Space Marines, Demons, Chaos Knights, and Imperial Knights.
Yep.
All those leftover codexes got their own secondaries. Which actually, when you look at it that way, there aren't that many codexes left to be made into 9th edition.
It's hopefully before...
They might get them all done by the end of this year.
Yeah, I was going to say, hopefully before the next balance book like this comes out, they'll have all the codexes.
Ooh, that's pushing it, I think. I think that would be cool, but that's pushing it.
One can hope.
One can hope. So that's secondaries. Now we can go over some of the other changes that GW has decided to bring into this book.
Yep. So, like we mentioned earlier when we were talking about the way the Grey Knights changed and how they can only take a limited amount of Nemesis Dread Knights now, that is directly related to the soup changes. So now you can no longer have different sub-factions within your army. So you can't have a detachment of Imperial Fists and a detachment of Iron Hands. It's got to be one or the other. You can't mix and match.
Correct. One exception is Chaos.
Yes.
Chaos can still, thankfully, because they really do rely a lot on that, especially fluff-wise. You can still mix your marks around and have one attachment of Khorne and one of Tzeentch and one of Nurgle or whatever. And I think this is fine because you no longer have people min-maxing. And this is only for tournaments. Remember, everything we're talking about, barring the point changes, I would say, is all for tournament play. If you don't want to play with these rules and your opponent's like, I don't want to play with these rules, then don't play with them. Don't buy this book.
Just do your thing.
We are reviewing this because at least I play tournaments, trying to get Connor and Calvin and maybe Sam to play a few more, and we're reviewing the content for you guys, so of course we're going to cover them.
Yeah.
But if you're someone who's just playing some Garage Hammer, don't worry about it.
Right. Like I said, yeah, do your thing.
Do your thing. The last done, you want to go on the Fortification?
Yeah. So you can remove a piece of terrain in your deployment zone if you need that extra space to put a fortification down. So if you have a fortification, I honestly don't know anyone who's ever bought one of the fortifications to actually use as a fortification, but if you need to fit it in your deployment zone, you can now.
You can. So the original rule, for those of you who aren't aware, is that a fortification, when you deploy it, had to be 3 inches away from any other terrain piece in your deployment zone, or any terrain piece, but you deployed it typically in your deployment zone. Now, you can remove a piece of terrain to put yours on there. I don't think people are going to do it. Maybe some. I know that, I guess the Sisters one is like a big full-scale building that also operates as obscuring terrain and stuff. So being able to just place your own piece of obscuring terrain in your deployment zone could be kind of cool. Tyranids, we have our Sporosis. Maybe. I don't know. But it's something they did, so in case you do want to dabble with fortifications, it's a little more easy for you now.
Yeah.
Now, let's talk about seasons in Warhammer 40K, because we are now lucky enough to get 2 of these every year, not just the one. So this is chapter approved. That's why it's not called chapter approved 2022, like I've been calling it. It's just called chapter approved, because we're gonna have 2022 part 1 and 2022 part 2.
Electric Boogaloo.
Or as I hope, it's chapter approved 2022 and they just don't do the part 2 because they realize it's a bad decision.
Yeah.
Well, let's talk about it. So every 6 months, they want to modify with a new war zone, essentially, the state of competitive Warhammer 40k, which on a surface level idea, I love it. You don't want to be stuck playing the same missions for a full year, especially in tournaments. When you already play 3 to 5 games in a tournament, then you really start to play the same things, and towards the end of a year, it's like, all right, this again, and same. It gets a little stale. It's okay, but if you're a tournament player, you like variety. Unfortunately, by doing it every 6 months, it's a new chapter approved, which means new point changes, new themed missions, new books, and more money for us to spend. Because if each one of these is $40, that's like, it is $80 a year that you have to pay just to play up-to-date 40k, not including your own codex or your new models or anything, just to have rules on top of a rule book, because now this book doesn't have the core rules in there. So you'd be at a tournament, you want to whip out, all right, let me make sure I'm doing actions right, or I've got the psychic phase rule right. Now you got to whip out the big book. You whip out the big book to consult those rules now. Or I guess you could take your old chapter approved, but then you got two of them.
It's way too many
Another
books. Way too many books.
So they scaled down on the number of things in this book, and they kept the price the same.
Yeah.
And I see what they're going for here. They want this to be the style of AAA video games.
Yeah.
As you see in the picture here, I include Fortnite because I know that's one of the most famous ones for doing that, is that every couple months they change the map or something like that, or they include new, I don't even know, they include new guns or skins, or they mix it up. Specifically the map, which changes the way you play the game. And once Fortnite got so popular, a lot of other video games, like even Call of Duty and stuff, took hold of that. And they created, seasons and season passes and all of this stuff. So this is essentially a very less enticing season pass to play the competitive game.
Yeah. I think the idea of putting out new missions, and balance changes is awesome, but this is quite possibly the worst way they could have picked to do it.
So as someone who has an entrepreneurial mind, in my set, I took a lot of business classes, not a business degree, but I took business classes for a potential minor. I know what they're going for here, but I also know everything about supply chain. Not everything, but I know a lot of things about supply chain. This book, along with the point changes, was probably written 5 months ago, 6 months ago. And 40k 6 months ago was very different than it is now. The Dimakaron 6 months ago was an absolute wrecking force. Now, he still is, but he's not that crazy. The 5-point increase on Hive Guard, they didn't go like, ooh, there was a lot of, Hive Guard in the November tournaments. We should probably up. No, they had that decision way before that. So if you're printing this book 6 months in advance to be out in 6 months, so when this book, they're right now, probably writing the next chapter approved as we speak. But the game, like they can't know what's coming 6 months down the line to make sure. Maybe they have an idea, but they don't know how the community truly does. I don't know if it's the best, at least for point changes. For point changes, I don't think it's the best. Also, they have to pay for them. But for just straight up missions, I'm fine with that. If they wanted to sell this book for $20, I'd be okay with that. I would consider that a compromise. Not that we can compromise with them, but if we can, sell that book, $20, put a little code in it so you can have a digital version of it too, like they do with the codexes, and that's good. Put the points out for free. No reason you need to pay for points, updates. That part doesn't make sense. So I want to go into kind of a vision I came up with some input from where I've heard around, but this is what I hope they work towards. And if whatever reason someone at GW is listening to this and wants to pass it along, let me know also what you guys think. So point changes, like I said, they need to be free.
Right.
They need to incorporate them into their army builder as well, and or make the free PDF that everyone can download on Warhammer Community. They should still have hardback books because, I mean, me personally, I'd much rather flip through a codex than flip through on like my phone or an iPad. It's just, I get it. Some people like it. I much prefer the hard copy book.
Right.
That's that. But they have the codes. So they're already one baby step in the right direction. And again, the chapter approved books, I say $10 on here, 15, 20 because it's GW, should be less, but still, that way they don't have to worry about them being out of date. They can still print them ahead of time, get them ready, get shipped out. But the more things that need to stay up to date, like points and other balancing things, like they're doing with the balanced data slate. I really thought when the balanced data slate was coming out, it was going to be, all right, here are the new missions and the balanced data slate, here are the new points. That was how it was going to be. I was wrong. I was unfortunately wrong. So this is my dream, my future that I hope they do. So imagine you have a Warhammer Plus subscription, and this is what it gets you. You have updates to your codexes or your codices. So you have your account, you plug in your codes to your codices, your rule books, whatever. Whenever they update an FAQ or a point change or something like that, they flag it on your codex. There's like a little notification bar that says, hey, this is update whatever, here's the things we changed. And you can go to like, you know, a page that has all the changes, has the FAQ, but also when you're flipping through your codex, you see like, okay, let's say they changed a stratagem or something. It's highlighted with a little link that says, since patch whatever, this has now been changed. It used to say this, now it says this, etc. So you have that already built in, it's all integrated, you don't have to worry about that. On top of it, the balanced data slates and the app, they actually need to make their list building app better.
It sucks.
It's not great right now. Unfortunately, Battlescribe is fine, but it's kicking them out of the water pretty much. But if their app was good, their list building one, then that's implemented. Then it's up to date all the time because they can constantly change stuff. It might actually be worth purchasing the app. I would pay even if it comes out to, and I did some math, if the difference in not getting the point book, I'm pointing at the ground because I threw it on the ground, the point update book, if you don't have to pay for that 2 times a year, you're just paying for that little book. The difference could be put into the app, right? And sure, maybe it comes out to be about the same money, but now you have something that is like wholly connected. It's fluent, it's always changing. Now they can be like, all right, I don't know, Space Marine whatevers are way too good right now. We gotta put out a hot fix essentially. Their balanced data slate, put it out there. Everyone's codex is updated digitally. They flag it. You can make a note in your hard copy if you want, and they can just go from there. And it's just a much smoother operation. And that's what I hope they go to.
Yeah, it is unfortunate. GW right now still is, I believe, as of their last earnings report, they're still making record profits.
Still making a lot of money.
So right now they have no real incentive to change, as mad as people get on the internet.
And that's the one thing to point out. That so you have, as you got to think in a company, you've got your, not to say down to them, but you got your bottom level guys who are all your factory workers, your store managers, store employees, all of them have zero, say in what happens up here, the big CEOs. Then you've got, got your rule writers, you got your leads of the rule writers and all the teams. They are probably not communicating with the finance people in any way, shape, or form. The finance people looking like, where can we make a little bit extra money, or where could we cut costs, or things like that. And they're like, oh, this. And they're like, all right, do it, rules people. And then they just do it because that's what they're essentially told to. It's unfortunate that it goes that way. I think I get it. As someone who, knows about running business or knows the real money behind it, I understand it completely. I just think at some point you have to cut your profits to make a better product, because you have to think at some point, it's the whole, supply demand, that if you lower that entry fee almost, or make it more accessible to people, you might get more people to join in.
Right. They have
a stranglehold.
They really do have a complete and utter stranglehold on tabletop wargaming.
Which is, I'm not saying, I mean, you could have your own opinion, but I don't want to talk down to them. I'm just saying, like, I love it. I love the game. You guys if you saw my post on the YouTube thing, we've been playing this for 10, going on 11 years now. I love this game. I want to see it excel, which is why I am complaining about this Raw, is because I think this is a whole 2 steps forward, 1 large step backwards. We got, all right, the balanced data slate. They showed off free point changes in there. They showed off, the ability to update rules as it progressed in the meta. And they said, all right, we're going to update the primaries too. And they took 1 big step back. It's like, yeah, we're going to break that out into multiple paywalls, essentially. Which is like, you had it. You had it, GW. You were just right there. And then you snatched it away. So that's essentially what it is. We'll sum it up, because that was pretty ranty at the end, which is okay, because it deserves it. Things I like, because again, while the price and everything the way it is, I love the changes to the primary. The secondary, they're good changes, but they're going to make you think a lot more about how you build your armies. It's not going to be as easy, at least from a Tyranids perspective. We had it pretty easy, just like, all right, slap 2 or 3 lictors in the list. You don't have to worry about secondaries. We're going to have to think a lot more about how to achieve those, and I know other armies will too. I'm interested to see what comes in a balanced data slate. If we have this now, what are they going to show off in the next balanced data slate? Is it really going to be much changes? And how is that balanced data slate going to compare to the future chapter approved? Because maybe there's stuff coming in chapter approved and just spit it out early like they did last time. So I don't know about that. Things I don't like, the cost of competitive play is basically doubling, like we said. Why are we paying for point changes? Only some armies are paying for point changes when you're giving out other army point changes for free in the balanced data slate. Makes no sense. I mean, I get it, but I don't get it. Why though?
Yeah.
Yeah. But important things to mention as we wrap it up. I do not recommend buying this book at all, unless you're in a situation like we are, and we are reviewing the content for you, and we use it on a very regular basis to make our content. What I would recommend doing is buying it as a group of friends. So if you had, Sam and me and Connor and Calvin, we were, a gaming group, we would only buy 1 copy of this for all of us, and we would share it. Split the cost, $10 a person, much more doable. I highly recommend doing that for all of these. And then maybe just, I'm not even gonna say anything. Nope. Lips are sealed. We are a business. We do not condone anything.
No, nothing ever.
Okay, so anyway, just share the book. Share the book with your friends. Go
Share the love.
Go in on, or if you run a local store, maybe everyone puts a couple dollars into a pot, and you buy a couple copies for people at the store to use, something like that, because really it just
you already have store tape measures and store dice. You might as well have a store chapter approved.
Maybe you gotta, I know the whole saying, speak with your dollar. I think that's how that saying is. I don't want to say boycott this, but do it don't burn a hole in your wallet for this book. Buy more models instead. Which,
this is $20.
Really 40.
Yeah, well, this half is.
That half is 20.
We threw the other $20 on the floor.
Just spent $40 and threw 20 of it on the floor.
Also, just a funny thing to note when we talk about supply chain, a very interesting situation we ran into today. Speaking of supply chain, which just makes this format even less accessible, the actual Games Workshop here in Minnesota did not receive
chapter approved.
So as I was driving over to record this video, I had to make a detour and go pick it up from a different store. So,
but all the other, the friendly local game stores, they all had it. But the GW itself didn't.
So it's just relying on a physical book for key changes to the way that the game is played is just not.
They just, it just doesn't work. And if they want to push this game out to more and more people, then you gotta adapt. You gotta move, you gotta get ahead of the curve. You can't be dragging your feet behind with these books like this. We'll cut the ranting there. We got a battle report to film, and I'd much rather do that than rant about this anymore. So thank you guys for watching. These rants will be segmented out so you don't have to listen to all of them. But if you did, let me know what you guys thought of them, other opinions on it. Let's just don't go and crap all over GW, especially the community people and the store managers and everything. They had nothing to do with all this stuff.
They're awesome.
They're the lifeblood of the company, so be nice to them. And we'll leave it there and catch you next time here.